I have the pleasure of introducing Louise Coe and Sam Lee's two videos, although I'll do one in Louise's first and then Sam's, on renewing our relationship with water. As I was saying, Louise is fired by the fundamental role that water consciousness plays and the importance of listening to the water, which is a theme that's come up throughout this conference, or at least listening to nature. And listening to spirit, and in this case, listening to water, if we're to survive and thrive. So, Amelia, perhaps you could play Louise's talk. Thank you.
Sam Lee is joining us next to talk about water and his engagement with water and love for water. And before that, I'd like to just touch on some aspects of water that have inspired me and that I'd love to share with you. Water is a living being and water has consciousness. Water is speaking to us and wants us to listen. Water was always at the centre of our culture and our community, and it can be again. As you watch water flow in nature, it meanders and spirals, always wanting to return to a sphere. You can watch it cascade over rocks, forming eddies and vortexes. That's how water becomes structured and shares molecules that create electrical charge. It's the goal of water to conduct electricity. Water self-cleanses in that meander and spiraling process. And as it travels through the earth, it picks up the frequencies of the landscape it flows through. And likewise, if we look up at the clouds, we can see the spirals and meanders in the same way, as that's the natural flow state of water and air. And water will fall as rain and will be carrying those cosmic frequencies, the starry imprints. So it's kind of makes standing at the bus stop in the pouring rain a little more interesting. So water is the mediator of all life processes and is the key to our expanding consciousness and our reawakening. And this is very much a grassroots movement as each one of us connects and reconnects with water. And it's growing every day. It's very exciting. There are so many active groups like Political Action, the Rivers Trust, Surfers Against Sewage, Water Aid, and then more spiritual groups like the Gatekeeper groups all around the country who are walking on river pilgrimages, and there are just countless people at the moment who are reconnecting to their love of water and reverence for water. Here we can see Dr. Masaru Emoto from Japan, who did so much to pioneer and popularize ways to energize water. And what he did, he froze water. I think we all know this, but I'm going to just touch on it, and photographed it under a microscope. And he found that not all water formed beautiful crystals. You can see at the top the crystals that aren't in a harmonic because they come from water that's stagnant or polluted, and much of our tap water sadly is in that state. And then below are the examples of purified pure water in its natural state. It forms these beautiful snowflakes. This is the image of water when the word happiness is connected to the water, and it forms this beautiful snowflake. And shiawase in Japanese means happiness, and that's the same as the phrase shiawase, and that describes water that is peaceful and calm in all four directions. Here, love and thanks. So he wondered if we can change the structure, we as human beings, and found that that is indeed the case. His work built on the pioneering work of Theodor Schwenk, who developed the drop picture method and has a marvelous book I recommend called Sensitive Chaos, all about water. And then Veda Austin is another inspiring water researcher and artist, and her work is absolutely extraordinary. And if you're in any doubt of water's ability to carry information and memory, then I suggest you look into her work, Veda Austin. She shows how water is responsive and intelligent, and her experience shows water is expressing its consciousness through us. And further, that water will communicate and reveal more to you when you are ready to enter into the relationship. So that is quite a thought. 90% of our natural disasters in the world are water-based disasters. Disaster actually means against the stars. And so that's showing how out of balance we are and how our world of water is completely off balance. And when we remember water is a living being, we will care for it properly, respect water and love water. We ourselves are made of water. 99% of our molecules are water molecules. Our eyes see through water. Vision is possible through the interplay of light on water. When we shed tears, they're salty like the sea. The way we treat water is the way we treat ourselves. And humanity is waking up. And as I said, water is the key to our expansion of consciousness. You can take a glass of water and hold it to your heart and make a prayer to water to teach you about who water is and who you are. So ask water to open her sacred mysteries to you, and you can become a voice for water. The bards, shamans, and poets sit by the water to be inspired in direct communication. And then there is communication to us mediated by the fairy realm and the elemental kingdom who live alongside us. But most people have lost that vision in our separation from nature. And that our vision is now starting to return as we return to wholeness. Creation myths tell how the world is formed when water meets light and their interweaving energies bring forth life. A common thread in creation myths around the world is that water is there already. In Genesis, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. In Proverbs, we read about Sophia, who was present at the beginning of creation. When God established the heavens, I was there playing before, all the while. Celtic creation myths refer to a time when there were no gods or people, no time. There was only the sea, and where the sea met the land, a mare was born white and made of sea foam. So before anything in creation myths, there is an abyss or expanse of water from which form emerges. So we can begin to see why water is considered sacred. We've turned away from Mother Earth, the Holy Spirit, Bridie, Mary, Ceridwen, Sophia, Guinevere, all personifications of the water of life, eternally present in the mystery schools of these islands. And this is part of the whole sorry state of the wasteland we live in today. In Britain, the well has always been a focus for ritual and ceremony, and our springs and rivers too. But the well is considered to be a gateway to the other world, the source of all wisdom. There's a wonderful revival happening of the old custom of dressing the well, and this is the famous chalice well at Glastonbury. We're never far from Holy Well, as there are thousands in the British Isles. We don't need to travel to wild places. We can find that wild place in water flowing right past our door. Remembering how to treat water well is to reconnect with the truth of who we are. We can go back to a time when our ancestors revered water, seeking the memory that we carry in our body. We have all that within us. And water is the mediator for that. There is so much wisdom to be found in the well of memory. We can grow down into our oldness and imagine 1,000 years ago or more, and learn from the past, connect to a time when people did live in attunement and alignment with water, with no separation. And we can learn how to do things differently because we have been here before. And these ways through we can find in the fairy tales and myths that remind us how to find a way through the wasteland. Our thoughts travel through the body's own internal sea. Positive thoughts, affirmations, prayers imprint onto our water body. It's heartening to know what an impact our thoughts and words can make, and what a difference we will see when people return to age-old customs of blessing the waters, blessing the wells, and treating water with reverence. You can try doing an experiment at home with 3 plants, and one of them you're going to love and cherish and water. As you water it, you're going to imbue it with all the most wonderful acknowledgements and care and love. And then the second one, just for the purposes of the experiment, you're going to think negative thoughts, aggressive, hateful thoughts. Perhaps you've got a peace lily, so you can go, what sort of peace lily do you think you are? What an apology for a peace lily, you know, all that sort of stuff as you water it. But the third one, you're going to completely ignore, and then you're going to find that the one you ignore will grow the least. And what is sad about the times we live in is that the beautiful waters of our land are so often ignored. And we found when we go on a river pilgrimage, a Gatekeeper river pilgrimage, that the river does start to sparkle and shine and respond to our witnessing the river. And because people don't use rivers in the way they used to, they don't go down to the river and really care for it and be grateful for it, for its beauty and its resourcefulness for their life. Another great thing you can do is clear a spring, clear your local river, because they're clogged with twigs and leaves and all sorts, and it's a really fun thing to do. And the river again will be so grateful for that care. This is a wonderful image of Anthony Gormley's statue of a person in prayer. Anthony Gormley does seem to get everywhere, but anyway, this is in the crypt of Winchester Cathedral. And Winchester Cathedral was built on a floodplain, which was incredibly unpractical, but the master builders knew that they needed to locate the building, the cathedral, so that it was over the crossing lines of underground water to enhance the ritual and ceremony taking place in the cathedral. And that means it regularly floods. And this statue is, you can see it in the flooded crypt. And it kind of encapsulates how when we pray and use water, pray into water, and then use water in our rituals and blessings and ceremonies, the water, it will absorb that and it will be enhanced and expand. And when you're in an outdoor wild space, the water will take that information and it will evaporate up into the air, or it will travel down the river and eventually reach the ocean. And so I love how we, in our own home, we can do that with our drinking water, our bathing water, or we can pray into our local river or engage in blessings and have such an impact. There is just one ocean in the world, and this is showing that. And every drop of water contains all memory and all the world, which is an extraordinary thought. And as we enliven the old ways with the energy of our own time, we enter into the stream of time. And Sam Lee is someone who lives this, as he has taken the old songs of our land and with his beautiful voice and new musical interpretations, he's been bringing them through in a contemporary way. And so I'd like to hand on to Sam and who'll be sharing more about his love for water.
Thank you, Louise. I know you weren't speaking directly to us, but that was a wonderful recording. And I just think it's so important, how water is so important. And you know, it's wonderful. It's wonderful how everyone is complaining about sewage and concerned about the rivers, but also just to know how the water is spiritually important to us as well, and it's that inner quality. So it's vital to all aspects of our lives, physical and spiritual. So I had agreed with Amelia. I would just give a brief introduction to Sam Lee, who is a great friend of Gatekeeper, and of course a very well-known musician, who's single-handedly rediscovered, reinterpreted, and saved for posterity hundreds of traditional folk songs. And he's also a really passionate conservationist, and he walks the talk out in the landscape, taking the music with him. And in Sam's video, which we're about to see, he discusses the pilgrimage work he has done, he's been doing to bring people into close connection with some of the most precious rivers in the UK. Thank you, Amelia. Over to you.
Hey there, everyone. Sam Lee here, wanting to share a little bit about water, streams, rivers, and following on from Louise's talk, to speak a little bit about the folkloric realm and also my relationship to these incredible bodies, these living beings, these veins throughout our country that cleanse and transport and also toxify our land by nature of our relationship with them. And I have possibly my favourite place, like many of you, is down by the old riverside. Is that amazing threshold place between land and water. I've spent much of my life in rivers. I've built coracles, made documentaries about the rivers. Just one came out about the River Thames, the folkloric, the spiritual, the ecological side of that. You can hear that on Radio 4. That involved me coracling down much of the River Thames. I have a great love of the chalk streams, our unique jewel in the crown ecosystem. Britain having 80-something% of the world's chalk streams that do exist. There's about 260 of them. These incredible places of immense biodiversity, unique specialness that is in many ways the source of much of Britain's success and wealth and unique ability to have prospered throughout winters. Chalk streams being these constant temperature environments that have very mineral rich, gin clear water that's by nature of being stable at around 9 to 11 degrees centigrade, welling up from the chalk aquifers, have maintained ice free throughout the winter and not overheating during the summer. And that's allowed for an amazing irrigation system around the chalk stream catchment areas that has allowed pasture and shepherds and cattle rearers to graze much later into the winter, much earlier into the spring than anywhere else in Europe. Plus the incredible trout and salmon, genetically unique salmon, specifically unusually different from any other salmon in the world, that have evolved in accordance with our chalk streams. These ancient places have also been places of gathering. Some of the oldest habitations in Europe, certainly in Britain, the oldest civilization that we have, evidence of civilization, of mass gathering, is there just by Stonehenge, back into the Mesolithic, in a place called Blickmead, where archaeological excavations are underway, luckily saved from the devastating possibility of that tunnel, and extraordinary, enormous evidence of boats and human habitation in the hundreds of people is there. But the wonderful thing that I want to speak about and sing about is the songs that deal with rivers, because being that they have been such important places for gathering, they've held a very important folkloric role and place within our ancient peoples, our ancestors. Yeah, domain, places of love, of romance, of meeting, of the fishing, the drownings, the places of great mystery. A lot of Scottish ballads that speak about the water sprites and the water kelpies particularly, and the life involved with being connected to the river. I wanted to sing this one first, though, a song that I've loved for a very long time, an Irish song, which is a beautiful romance, but also devastating kind of parting in the river as a place of meeting, but also a place of separation, from the Irish singer Mary Ann Connolly, and it's called Lurgan Stream, and I thought I'd just sing this one to you because it's such a beautiful tune. It goes like this. When first into this country my mind was free from love, but the beauty of that female face, it so enticed me. Her teeth were like polished ivory, and her lips as sweet as the dew, and her nut brown hair flies in the air, lovely to be seen. Her eyes were like the violet's blue, and her cheeks were like the rose, and there's not another flower there in yonder valley grows. She's neat, she's sweet and handsome, and her countenance serene, and her place of habitation lies near to Lurgan Stream. This fair young maid made answer, "Our love I cannot hide, for I have no objections, young man, to be your bride, and leave your parents' happy home, where mirth and joy was seen. So I will go over the sea with you, and leave dear Lurgan Stream. If you would come over the sea with me, I might get lots of land. You might fall in love with another Colleen, and leave me here in pain. Young men are fools in general, perhaps you are the same. So I will go over the sea with you, and leave sweet Lurgan Stream. Lurgan Stream is just a wonderful lyrical kind of high mountain flow to it, that song. I've always really kind of imagined what that sort of the quality of shallow ripple over the river might be, and how much that melody has sort of arose in kind of accordance with that. I've done a lot of singing with rivers. It's something that I'm called to do in some of my work in making pilgrimage with rivers. I do an annual several pilgrimages with the chalk streams, with the Darrant, with the Colne, with the Test, and quite a few others of those beautifully named chalk streams. But I think the river that I'm most connected to is the River Dee, the Royal River, that rises in the pools of Dee in the Cairngorms and flows the many miles out to Aberdeen, where it flows in absolute parallel with the River Don that arises within a few miles of the same place, and very unusually also exits right next to the Dee and the Don, the twin rivers. But the Dee is a river that I did a big coracling journey, pilgrimage down. It's the river that was much adored by the Scottish travellers. My teacher, who I was apprenticed to, Stanley Robertson, the last of the Scottish travellers, had many songs that came from that land, from the Cairngorms, from the Aberdeenshire hills, and some of them spoke about the goings on in the Dee, and he wrote and spoke and told stories wonderfully of the times pearl fishing there on the Dee. The travellers would go and spend their summers wading around, taking out the freshwater mussels with this incredible intuitive way of knowing which had the freshwater pearls, and even claiming they had a way of opening the pearls up to not harm them, but able to take the pearls without killing them. They're an amazingly, the freshwater pearls live well over 100 years and have a unique breeding system that's dependent on the salmon. And the freshwater pearl mussels are filter feeders, and they filter about 50 litres of water a day. So each one is purifying the rivers. They're a very, very central part of the ecosystem then, and sadly perilously endangered. They're trying to rewild the freshwater pearls, but they have a form of migrating up the stream whereby they send out their little kind of young that clamp onto the gills of the salmon, and as the salmon run, that's what takes these freshwater pearls upstream. However, with the crashing populations of salmon, the mussels are really struggling, and this symbiotic relationship is, because it's so broken, is having a really terrible effect on the ability for the rivers to maintain their health and purity. So this is one of those kind of ecological consequences. And the pearl fishing has come to an end for obvious reasons. They were being destroyed by rogue pearl fishers, just harvesting up lots of the mussels and killing them off. And they're trying to do a project of reseeding, rewilding the pearls, but the river there has this amazing ecosystem that is full of wild stories, particularly of the kelpies that would take the pearl fishermen, drown them, and they often lived in fear of being dragged under by these horse beings that lived on the rivers. There's one song that I really love that speaks about the goings on right on the side of the River Dee in a place called Monymusk, and it's a terrific story of rogue behaviour, of deceit, and about the amazing soporific drugging of this young man. Johnny of the Brine is the song, and he's the protagonist, that sort of lovable rogue hero who falls asleep on account of having drunk too much of the blood of the venison he has just shot. Him and his hounds fall asleep, and that's where he is caught by the locals, the foresters, for poaching, and is taken out. So this is the Robertson family's version of Johnny of the Brine, or Johnny of Brittlesea, a very loved ancient ballad. Johnny rose one May morning, cold water to wash his hands, Go bring to me my 2 greyhounds. They are bound in iron bonds, bonds. They are bound in iron bonds. But Johnny's wife, she wrung her hand. To the greenwood do not gang, for the sake of the venison. To the greenwood do not gang, gang. To the greenwood do not gang. But Johnny got up through Moneymask, and down among some sprog, and there he spied a young dilly. He was lying in a field of scrub, scrub. He was lying in a field of scrub, and the first arrow that he fired wounded him upon the side, and between the water and the wood his greyhounds laid their pride, pride. His greyhounds laid their pride. But Johnny and his 2 greyhounds drank so much of the blood that Johnny and his 2 greyhounds fell asleeping in the wood, fell asleeping in the wood. But by there came a cruel old man, and an ill death may he die, for he went and told the foresters, and he told where he did lie, and he told where he did lie. But Johnny and the foresters let him sleep on, but the 7th forester denied. He was Johnny's sister's son. To the greenwood do we must gang, and the first arrow that they fired wounded him upon the thigh, and the second arrow that they fired, his heart's blood blinded his eye. His heart's blood blinded his eye. And Johnny rose up with an angry growl, for an angry man was he. And I will kill you 6 foresters, and I'll break the 7th one's back in 3, 3, 3. And I'll break the 7th one's back in 3. And he put his foot all against the stone, and his back against the tree, and he did kill all the 6 foresters, and he broke the 7th one's back in 3, and he broke his collarbone, and he put him on his old grey mare's back, for to carry the tidings home, home, for to carry the tidings home. That's Johnny of the Brine, set on the banks of the River Dee, in one of those great epic tales of bloodshed and disputes and disharmony in that incredible liminal place of by the river. There's so many songs and so many stories I'd kind of love to tell about the rivers. If you'd like to know more, if you'd like to come walking with me, I do many pilgrimages the most notable one is the salmon pilgrimage, singing the salmon back up the River Dee in June, up in the Cairngorms, where we walk in the incredible rewilded state of the Feshin. We do lots of singing to the river, which I could go on and on about the importance of bringing song, rewilding our ancient songs back to these ecosystems, and how important that is as part of the health giving, the well-being, that sense of intentional impregnation of sound and song, and our own human pastoral stewardship that we can give to rivers. That's over midsummer in 2022. I also lead the Turtle Dove Pilgrimage, where we do lots of following the rivers and finding the sources of the river Arun and the river, another river, I can't remember the name of it, in Sussex, and leading into the Net Rewilding Estate, where we sing the song of the turtle dove back to the turtle doves. And I will be doing more walks with chalk streams soon. Please check out the BBC documentary Song to the Thames, really giving my great love to the river that I've grown up most of all on, and looking at the histories of the people around there, from source to mouth. I did that journey right from Thames Head. Really tells a wonderful different personalities of this extraordinary river. Thank you very much. You can follow me, Sam Lee Song, on many different platforms and see the work I do at the Nest Collective. And thank you, Gatekeepers Trust. I've enjoyed your work for many years. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to Sam Lee. Can't we all see what an inspired and absolutely enthusiastic supporter of nature he is, and what a wonderful singer. So if you weren't aware of his pilgrimages and his song walks, do book on. They're very popular, so quite hard to get onto, but do so. So thank you.
We sowed the seeds of love. We showed them how to sing, grown with a knowing of something in their blood, where ceremony begins. When the apron string unpinned, my garden was forsook to weigh in on industry, raised behind the altar under oak and ash. I grew to a bonny rowan tree, freely in my own country. But some old oak trees won't twist, for they're brittle beneath the bark. Better that limbs be broken, brought to ground, and service the light to dark, to dark, to dark. We're just servants unto the dark. For the gatekeeper can stand by, for they must be bound to be free. Light working the liminal, listening to the land, and fingering at mystery. Not Sally, free and easy. Oh grief of I, the songs they go to decay. The garden of England once bloomed its sound of salt, now destined for some bouquet. No roses in this display. For the rose it bore a thorn, a spritz of willful spark, but taming its temper to never pierce the palm, will never touch the heart, the heart, the heart. no poison tip to the dark. We sowed the seeds of love. We showed them how to sing, grown with the knowing of wildness in their blood, more than the sum of the everything. The old wow never wears thin, sweet as the buds in the spring, the spring. Home is when the heart sings, the songs that tell of our own kith and kin. The old wow never wears thin. Out of decay, new life springs, it springs, as the anima sheds its own skin, its skin. Well, this pebble rolls its big rings. The old wow never wears thin. The old wow never wears thin. Some of my favorite things. The old wow